Hey,
Hello, everybody. Hey, welcome to the Cult Bar, folks, Volume 30. We're going to be having a pretty rough docuseries to talk about. Yeah, strap in for that. Anyway, welcome to the Cult Bar. Appreciate you all being here. And how are you, Renee?
I'm doing great. Hopefully we can maintain a little bit doing great through this very intense episode we're about to do.
Yeah, we'll get through it. We always do. So why don't we start off with what are you drinking? What are you having?
Well, I'm adjusting to a new medication, so I can't have alcohol. I'm having a very controversial passion fruit LaCroix. And here we go.
Here we go.
And hopefully y'all don't come for me. And now it's frozen on the can.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll just keep that as a screenshot for forever. That'll be great.
I think it tastes great.
Hey, as we always say, drink what you like, right?
And Baptists don't drink, so it's like, I'm in it.
You're following doctor's orders. This is good.
Yeah.
So I usually have some sort of theme drink. It's too hot, so I went with something that I know is light and refreshing. So I'm just going with the good old standard gin and tonic. I grabbed this gin that I've never seen before, and I wanted to show it to you. This is Purity Gin. I said puberty. That was a real cheapers cripes, Doug. So this is organic Nordic dry gin. So I don't know, and it was like $20, which for gin is pretty cheap. So unless you're getting like super cheap, like Mr. Boston gin or whatever. But yeah. So and I usually use lime tonic water because I like having extra lime and put limes in it. So cheers to you. Not quite as smooth as the botanist. The botanist is my favorite, but not too bad. So yeah. Okay, so before we start talking about this thing, oh my goodness, it's gonna be wild. So there is a thing we're gonna need. How about we talk some news? All right, Renee, hot off the press.
Yeah. Hot off the press. We were gonna do something silly, but now we're doing something. I think this is good news. Police descend on Twin Flames Universe headquarters. Not a whole lot of information on exactly why they're doing it, but they're going after Jeff and Shailene, and they've opened up a tip line. They're investigating coercive control. I mean, we know there's financial crimes. We know there's sexual harassment. We know there's all sorts of crazy, awful shit going on, unpaid labor and all sorts of stuff. So I think they're going down, Doug.
This will be good news. So yeah, I just literally saw this like 45 minutes ago. I was like, hey, it's like news. And so
I was put my mascara on for the show. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't put my mascara on for the show this time, but yeah. So
you look great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I agree with you. I think this is good news that at least now there's some real scrutiny on them. Because I believe this was it a federal raid or was it I thought I saw one article say it was a federal, but this looks like it was Michigan, the state of Michigan doing it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's brand new news, so we'll probably not get real solid information for a while yet, but they're going to go, if they're going in and collecting evidence, they're going to find all kinds of shit, I'm sure. And then they open up a tip line. And so all these people that were in those documentaries are going to have something to say. All the people who live around there have something to say. I think this is good news.
Yep. So we shall see what comes of that. But, I was just like, oh, hey, all right, good. Some news that actually seems like you said, do some good for a change instead of just getting all the downer news, which we have plenty of that. And there's
this makes you happy. Hold on to that feeling tight because it's about to get real sad.
Yes, it is. So yeah. All right. So let us pray. Just real super quick as far as like a descriptor. Basically, this is about the IFB, which is the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. So I always fumble that
Yeah,
that
me too.
independent fundamental for some reason. That always makes me stumble. Follows which was, they say in the doc that it was started by Jack Hiles.
Yeah.
And there's also some talk about that it started in the like earlier than that, but he just kind of really took the ball and ran with it. But yeah, so this basically covers several women and the abuses they suffered at the hands of IFB and the leaders in that church. And
You'll hear
yeah,
some familiar names, right? Because we went over a lot about IFB and Goddard and um, the culture of sexual abuse when we covered Shiny Happy People, the Duggars. So there's
mhm.
some familiarity here.
Yeah. So it was, I think, on the whole, pretty well done docuseries. I
Oh,
think they
yeah.
did a really good job of it, and we've had some real stinkers for docuseries before,
Yeah.
but I think this one was pretty well done. And what I think was really good is they let the people who are the victims tell their story in a way they wanted to tell it, and
Yeah.
that's I think the right way to go. Yeah, you want the factual data and all that stuff, but you also want, if you really want to be engaged, you want to hear their stories and how they're doing and how they're processing and how it proceeds from a legal perspective in this case. So, yeah, where you want to bounce off here? Like we have a lot of
Well,
paths
I
to
have a
go.
fun fact,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
going to be the last. Again, not a whole lot of those in this episode, but there is like a TikTok, Instagram couple where one of the men in the couple is named Paul, and he's a blind man he's going blind, and he's an artist. And then his husband is a guy named Matthew who always pranks him, and it's all good fun. It's really cute.
Mm-hmm.
But Matthew was a member of this church as well, and he was only allowed to keep playing music because he performed for the Goddards.
Oh shit! I think I know.
Yeah.
Is it so? Just like their boyfriend, right? If I remember
No,
correctly.
they're married, and they have a
Okay.
dog named Mr. Maple. He does like children's books with little penguins.
Yeah, he did the Penguin book,
Yeah.
and they had it like pulled, and then he had to do like everybody bought his book, and it was like I remember seeing that. They're very
Yeah.
adorable.
So
But I didn't know. I didn't know Matt was part of
Matthew
that.
and Paul. Yeah, he was a member of this church, and that was one of the things that he shared recently, like in the last 6 months or so. And I mean, obviously, he's out. Because he's a married gay man, and that wouldn't fly. But so that
Mm-hmm.
was because I was like, oh man, I would have probably never even known who these people were. But it's like intersecting in the fun part of my life where it's like just for warm fuzzies. So
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. They do. Those two are pretty adorable because they'll do really like. There was one where Matthew was like hiding in various spots, and
Yeah.
Paul couldn't find him because he's partially blind, so he's trying to
Yeah, or
find him. Those are
they
really fun.
recently reunited their seeing eye dog with all of the puppies from the litter. Like they're really, you guys should check them out. They're really fun.
Yeah. That's the good stuff you want to see. This thing we watched was. I mean, you messaged me right after you started watching the first one, and you're like, "I'm 20 minutes in, and I don't know if I can get through this." And I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I really need to get on it because."
And here's the thing: I don't want to say I'm desensitized because I think if there comes a time where I am, then maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. But it takes a lot to really shock or like make it feel like uncomfortable because we are doing this once a month, and then I watch other stuff in between. So yeah, but it gets pretty intense pretty fast. They don't ease you into it. There's sort of an assumption that you don't really need to know what IFB believes because these people aren't following what they say they believe anyway. And I think that's true.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There is they do kind of tell you what they believe though by just listening to a lot of Jack Hyles sermons, and kind
Yeah.
of just their whole thing that they really concentrate on is just how the man is the supreme leader of the house. Like women are to be completely subservient, and children are to be seen and not heard. And
Yeah, and
be and
women
be
and this
and go ahead.
go ahead.
I would say, and if kids are heard, they are beaten so that they are not heard after that.
Right. And we talked about that too with like the glue sticks and the wooden spoons and all that with the Duggars. And then the other thing is that women are basically considered responsible for men's sins of lust, right? And that's, that's common in a lot of evangelical, Baptist, Mormon circles, etc. Women are basically seen as walking pornography, and your job is to make sure that you control men's responses to you, which of course is impossible.
Yeah.
And that
there's a little echo there. Sorry.
I would say that's how we get the situation that we're about to discuss. This place, and again, we talked about this in the Shiny Happy People one. This organization is absolutely infested with predators. There's no like, I would say it's worse than the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church is bigger.
Yeah. If the IFB was on the scale of the Catholic Church, they would be worse than the Catholic Church for certain, just in mass. But just on per capita, they're
right.
Worse. You're right, and as we'll talk about, is also anybody that was found to be doing something inappropriate, they immediately shuffled them to another location.
Right. Which is what made me think of the Catholic Church. Yeah.
Yeah, because they do the same thing. So, yeah. The folks. So it really the IFB is definitely what is the impetus for all of this, but the women are really the focus of this docuseries to me. So we have Ruthie. There was a lady named Karen. There was it Allison Householder? Her last name was Householder. That's how I can remember her.
And Kathy.
Yeah. And there was like 7 of them.
Yeah. So what it is Ruthie's the president of an organization, which I'm happy to report still exists. I just looked at their social media. They updated as recently as 5 days ago, called the Blind Eye Movement. And what they do is they push for this stuff to be out in public and for these people to be punished and held accountable, because it didn't happen for them. And what we'll see is that this is generations of women. This is not like 1 or 2 people at all. Like you couldn't say it's like, oh, that was the old church, but now it's different. That's not even a possibility.
Yeah, because we definitely know that's not a possibility, because the founder of the church's son was doing all sorts of awful shit, way worse than his father was doing. So, yeah, there's not any, hey, this was just a few bad apples nonsense. It's pervasive.
Yeah. And so we start with Ruthie Heiler's story, I think is her last name. I mean, Heiler? I know that's her last name. I don't know if I'm saying it right. And she, unfortunately we find out it's a really common story. In fact, her story is like repeated many times, but she was it her parents were divorced?
No. Now Karen had divorced parents. But wait, did Ruthie have divorced parents? Yeah, because Ruthie's parents got divorced because her mom got beaten by her husband to the point that she called the cops.
Yeah.
And so
there you go. So in addition to the family splitting up, she's also being like, she found out that her father had been arrested, what he had been arrested for, why he was gone, from like someone at school showing her the newspaper article about it. So, she's very vulnerable. And, we say this all the time in the show, like people don't get involved in these situations when they're not vulnerable, but she was a child. Mm-hmm. Obviously her mother was also vulnerable. So they get involved with this church, and Aaron Willand is the Bible study teacher for the young women. And he's also the volleyball coach for the young women. And, I don't know. Like, I don't want to get into too much of the dirty details because it's really upsetting, but he groomed her, molested her several times. She traveled out of state with him where he raped her several times. He did get reported for it. And what we find out is like the crimes that he was accused of should have equaled up to like 20 years, but he was only sentenced to 5 and he served less than 3. They didn't prosecute him for the stuff that happened that was
in Michigan
molestation because they wanted the bigger charge. So this guy didn't even do 3 years in prison and he's back out, and the church just parks him somewhere else and moves on because literally all of the men in the church are doing this.
Yeah. Andrew Willand. I'm gonna butcher I forget all these names because I forget these things. And there's also the part that what they also said, which was just a small little sort of factoid that they just kind of let loose, was that basically in the IFB, when girls are a certain age, they become basically like a dedicated babysitter for certain families, which is odd, like to us, but to them that was very normal. So like you would like this. So Ruthie basically became Aaron Willen's family's babysitter. So she would be there at his house, and that's where a lot of the where he started his assaults on her and things like that. So.
Well, then we saw that in our thing on Hillsong as well, right? I did that on purpose. I'm going to try and start it again. But we saw that with Hillsong as well, where it just, and it's still frozen. Sorry, guys. Where the babysitter, the nannies, they weren't even with their own kids. In this case, they were adults at least. But I think when we see how pervasive the abuse is in the church, the fact that these girls are made into in-home babysitters immediately upon puberty, it is hard to view that as a coincidence.
Well, it absolutely is not. Like we know you could.
Yeah, I think there's this tendency for people on the outside of situations like this to think like, oh, well, there's this culture that promotes this sort of thing, and that's why it happens so much. But I would say that IFB exists for these men to have access to young girls and young women to prey upon. That's my hot take.
Yeah, I would agree. So, but, Ruthie does manage to, even though this Andrew Willen only gets 2.5 years in Washington State because he moved there from the place in Michigan, Gaylord, Michigan, which is quite a name for a group of folks that are very much against gay people.
Yeah. Then we move on to the story of Paul Fox, who is a real fucking terrible guy.
Yes. This was involved Karen, right?
Kathy. That's the name I have. Yeah.
I am butchering names.
So her parents were divorced again, right? And as I recall, they were not members of the church before this. They kind of came in after the fact.
They came in because of her. They came in because of her third husband wanted them to go in.
Yeah, and I just gotta say, like, we hear these stories, and it is mentioned in this documentary as well, that sexual predators look for a specific type of victim that they think will be an easy target and is less likely to report them. Mm-hmm. And so it is kind of interesting that you're seeing a lot of people, a lot of single moms, a lot of young girls that don't have an active father figure in their life. It is, again, really fucking weird that those are the people getting recruited into this church over and over again.
Yeah. Just wonder why that is.
And that is a wound that Kathy said she really felt. She really felt that the absence of a father, and she really viewed Paul Fox as a father figure. And she was assisting him on the bus ministry, which I didn't really understand how that worked. They talked a little bit about it in the second episode, and I still kind of didn't get it. Like,
yeah, my presumption was that they got on a bus and went somewhere and just proselytized to people. Is kind of what I thought. That's kind of.
Remember they were saying to get the kids on the bus, and then so I think they drove, they would get people to get on the bus and take them to church or something.
Okay.
Anyway,
it was a different time, that's for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, she had this like profound moment where she was at a camp or something, and one of the girls that was her age, because she was 16 at the time, had a stuffed animal that she took with her everywhere. And she asked her, "Why do you take that everywhere?" And she said, "Oh, because my dad gave it to me." And she like really was like profoundly hurt by the knowledge that she was never going to have something like that because she didn't have her father in her life. And she shared this with Paul Fox, who then, I guess, saw his opportunity because very shortly thereafter, he picked her up and he handed her a bag. And in the bag was a pink teddy bear. We actually see a picture of her holding this teddy bear. It looked like, to me, it was a Care Bear.
Kind of did, didn't it?
Yeah, but it was like, you couldn't say. I shouldn't have said that. I hope we don't get sued by Care Bear. Anyway, and so of course she picks this up and she's squeezing it and she's very moved by it. And to her, this was like fulfilling that need, that hole that she felt. And then he says, "Oh, there's something else in the bag." And she thought, like, "Oh, what else? This beautiful thing." And it was a pair of like sexy panties.
Yeah, and they were very much about modesty. So, like, she said she was confused, and I would believe her. That would be very confusing to a 15 or 16-year-old who's been
Yeah.
told like your purity is everything. That is what matters, and everything else about you doesn't matter. So,
But it
I felt
was
like I felt like Paul Fox also was doing a little bit more of a long con on that versus the other
oh yeah,
guys. If that makes
100%. Because as we hear the story go on, she even says like he just kind of pretended it didn't happen, but then he'd bring it up. "Oh, did you think about wearing them? Did you wear them?" Like, but not constantly, not all the time. And then eventually they I'm not going to put any like set dressing on this. He raped her, but in her mind they were having an affair because he convinced her that that's what was happening. And when her mom started to feel like something wasn't right, her mom confronted her. She admitted what happened, and her mom went straight to the church about it. And Goddard's wife took her out and dressed her down and chewed her out for sleeping with a married man and tearing the family apart. And she
Yep.
was forced to write a letter of apology to Paul Fox's wife. And then Paul Fox and his wife moved.
Yep, as they always do. So there's that, and also she was made to paint like a tack barn in where they were. That those folks were in California, I believe. Like, but they were like
Yeah,
in a very deserty part of California. I don't know if they were.
pretty close to where I live, actually.
Yeah, because I was like, that doesn't look like a comfortable thing to be doing out in the sun. So, and she was young. She was just out there in the sun, baking like crazy, and having to paint this thing as a punishment for this guy, raping her. So it's all kinds of fucked up.
Oh, and I forgot they moved him to a college full of.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. And what was the name of the college again? It was
Uh,
it was what?
it was one of the Hiles something, I can't remember because we get more on this fucking asshole Hiles too.
That guy's a fucking piece of work.
Yeah, I just noticed that like half my notes are missing. So
Hiles Anderson College. Sorry,
there you go.
in Indiana.
The second half of my notes are completely gone. But yeah, so he's moved there, and again, it's a college that's associated with IFB, so all these young women are being taught the same things. To me, it's like a fucking shooting gallery.
Mm-hmm. It is intriguing. It is intriguing that they basically are telling you your only job is to be a wife and a homemaker and a parent and a mother and to take care of your husband. So what are any of these women doing in college?
Well, because that's where you find your husband.
That's true. We do see that a lot in like things like Brigham Young and stuff like that.
Yeah. Ring by spring. Getting your MRS degree. Yep. Also, if you remember, IFB is really big on homeschooling. So
yes. So my wife wasn't homeschooled.
And it's a good thing.
My wife wasn't homeschooled. She was in an evangelical, like her parents are super evangelical Christian folks, but they did homeschool her sister, and then that sister went to a super duper Christian college in Indiana called Indiana Wesleyan. Before she finally kind of broke free of some of that stuff, but Indiana Wesleyan did not allow dancing on campus. That was that kind of school.
Yeah, I have a friend. I don't know if she was IFB or what, but she was her first husband was that no dancing Baptist, no drinking, no dancing. Don't go to a movie theater because it's dark. Like, yeah.
So basically nothing fun. All right.
It was insane to me as a Mormon because I thought we had it the worst, and then it was just like, oh, it could be so much worse.
It could be so much more restrictive. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so remember that Paul Fox was the guy in charge of the bus ministry, and when the bus ministry position opened up, Kathy's brother-in-law Victor took over. Victor, is that right? Or Vincent?
Is Victor.
Victor takes over, and he immediately starts having relationships with these young girls.
Yep.
And one of them is there, and she says that she was told, do you know my sister-in-law Kathy? And you know how nobody likes her and nobody talks to her, and she's like not included in anything. It's because she had an affair with the guy who had my job before me. You don't want that to happen to you, do you? And so even though she felt pressured into this relationship and wasn't doing it because she wanted to, she understood the message there.
Yep.
Right. And so it's almost like the coincidence is too strong. And that's where I say, like, my hot take is that it's just, there's too many of these things are coincidences to not be baked in on purpose.
Yeah, for certain. I agree. Like if you have something and it happens, and then once in a while it happens and you're like, okay, but like it happens all the time. And so that ceases to be a coincidence when it's, I think coincidences are maybe 3 in a row. And then after that, that's not coincidence.
And that's where we met this journalist who saw like a father and son being arrested for sexual impropriety. Well, that's weird, right? Like, this stuff is not normal in any organization to have this much going on. Oh, the guy lost his job for doing this, and then the guy who took his place did the exact same thing. Like, obviously the message wasn't sent that wasn't acceptable behavior.
No. Yeah, it was at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I think that lady was the reporter from, but in the middle of Texas, like, investigating religion has to be a tenuous position to take in that state, I would think.
Tell you what, yeah. So now we have a second victim from Aaron Willand that comes up, right? Or it was, I'm sorry, it was not another victim, but it was actually before Ruthie. And we find out that he was caught out in the situation literally just a few days before the situation with Ruthie started. So had any action been taken, Ruthie might not have been victimized. And that, again, is just showing you how serious this shit is and how baked in it is. But he literally told this girl that he would hunt her down, kill her family, and kill her if she said anything to anyone. And she believed him. But he did get found out. Somebody walked in on them.
Yep.
And told another pastor who was in a higher position named John Jenkins. And John Jenkins said, all right, let's move this guy somewhere else. And he moved him right into Ruthie's life, basically.
Yeah, I thought that he was getting ready to be moved. And I thought Ruthie and that other lady were in the same locale. Or am I wrong? Am I misremembering that?
Oh, you know what? I think you're right, because Ruthie also tried to sue John Jenkins. So you are correct.
So John Jenkins is one of the bigger villains in this too.
Yeah, she was caught, but yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, but he was supposed to be moved, and he couldn't even wait long enough to get moved to a new one before he started abusing someone like that quickly. So it's, I mean, all of it's gross, but that is like, it's like, dude, you're getting moved so that you don't get arrested by the police. Maybe stop that shit.
And this is this is directly from my notes. The reality of the evangelical and evangelical adjacent religion's obsession with sex and chastity is on full display in this documentary because one, it gives men free reign to act out because it's never their fault. It's always the fault of the slutty, awful harlot who tempted them, even if she's fucking 12 years old and doesn't even know what sex is, right?
And
It's
she's a
never their fault.
Jezebel.
Yeah, and then, but secondly, all these people fucking think about is sex. You see it everywhere. You know, we're 2 days out from the end of Pride Month. You saw, I'm sure if you were anywhere on social media, you saw this. It'd be like, oh, well, you know, I don't think they should have Pride in schools because children shouldn't be exposed to like people wearing like dildos or something. And you're like, what are you talking about? That doesn't happen in schools. And they're like, yeah, but they hang the pride flag. And it's like, well, that's not what a normal person thinks about when they see a pride flag.
Yeah,
Let alone a child.
that is a false equivalency there, my guy.
Yeah. And like, you know, I actually taught a workshop and it was advertised as being about the importance of authenticity, community, and love. And someone was like, I hope no kids are allowed for this adult content. So you see it.
Idiots.
The religious right thinks about sex more than any fucking body else. And I experienced that when I was when I was a part of a high control religion as well. It's like everything you can think of is sexualized. You're like I remember it like being Mormon, your shoulders are sexualized. There's a joke like in the Mormon community about porn shoulders. It's like a normal fucking person doesn't look at shoulders and get turned on. But if you tell a bunch of boys their whole lives that girls' shoulders are sexy and weird and like horrible, like they're going to think that.
Yeah. I mean, there might be some people who find shoulders sexy for certain.
Well, for whatever
person,
reason.
But yeah.
You know, and the other thing, I saw something in another like context also about these chastity obsessed religions. Someone was saying their mother told them that they were wrong for wearing a relatively modest bikini to the beach for a family barbecue because their stepfather had to look at the ground the whole time so he wouldn't be tempted to ogle her. It's like if a grown man cannot function without ogling women at the beach, he shouldn't be at the beach. But in these people's minds, that's normal behavior. If the girl's got a bikini on, you should be ogling her. It's so weird to me. Like, I just don't think that regular people think about sex that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think people think about sex quite a bit, but they are literally every single thing is somehow geared towards you're being impure or you're not being immodest. Like there's that whole thing, and you're right. They do. It is seemingly like, and they will say it's because they're trying to be on guard for things, to try to make sure they're doing the right thing, and that's nonsense. But to them, they're just protecting people.
I think that I guess I would compare it to like if you see a baby in a two-piece bathing suit, like most reasonable, rational, mentally healthy adults are like, oh, that's cute. But then you have people who are like, why are you sexualizing that baby? And it's like, well, I'm not. But it sounds like you are.
Yeah, and you maybe need to be on the registry somewhere.
But an evangelical person or a chastity, purity obsessed person would say that they're not the pervert. And so that's where I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, it's weird to view these things as overtly sexual. It's weird to be so focused on like, a teenage girl showing a knee or an elbow or whatever, and then being able to be like, well, she's the problem. It's like, no, I really don't think so.
It's always projection, right?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. So seeing that at play in a lot of places in our lives these days. But yeah. So what I think is as we're getting all these disparate stories, they do a good job of kind of giving each person their space to kind of voice their story and not intermingle them too much. You know what I mean? Like everything is very distinct and how they do that. And I feel that lends more power to the women telling their stories to me. I think
agreed.
that it makes them focus more on what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're explaining, how they're feeling, what they're going through. I would like to say Ruthie's husband, that dude, he was super supportive of her. Good job, my guy. It's like really, really excellent job.
So then now we're on to the householder home for troubled children. And I want to be clear here. I said troubled children, not troubled teens.
Mm-hmm.
We hear that children as young as 5 years old were being sent to this boarding school, whatever. Yeah, so I thought the first two episodes were tough. I don't know.
Well, I said at the end of the second episode, I messaged you, said, "Oh, they tied in troubled teen industry," and you hadn't quite gotten to that point yet. And I was thinking of like our show where we had Margaret on, and we talked about We Warned Them and just the whole troubled teen industry and how the cultishness of that. And this bundled that into their religious stuff. So like, hey, and the householders used the names of like the guy who ran it and his wife were friends with David Hiles, who was, Jack's son, who was a gigantic piece of shit himself. But because his name was Hiles, it made, it's Hiles is part of the group. Well, then clearly that's a good place to send our kids.
Meanwhile, Hiles almost certainly murdered his infant stepson.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
they didn't focus on that much. And I was just saying, they kind of just went right past that. I was like,
I mean,
hey.
They had like the medical examiner being like, well, it was definitely murder. It couldn't have been anything else. And then, but he didn't go to prison. And that's one thing and we'll talk about it more, I guess, but like throughout, it's like, who the fuck are the judges in any of these towns? What the fuck is going on?
Well, they're in smaller areas, smaller municipalities, and areas where religion is a very powerful tool.
It's just insane. You find somebody like in that case, he wasn't found guilty, but like if you find somebody guilty of a crime and then you're like, I don't know, fucking time served, whatever. Like it's so like, what?
Yeah, I don't think nobody was even charged in his stepson's death. Like nobody. They said nobody was charged.
Absolutely insane. The injuries that the child had were impossible to have been accidental. And
they were over a period of time too. Like this kid was small. He's like was he a year and a half? Was he a year and a half? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I think so. And they said it was like clearly a child that was tortured to death.
Yeah. So David Hiles, what a guy.
Definitely want to send your kid to the school, the troubled kids school that he recommends.
Yeah. One, having the name householder as like, that could be a cool name, but in this context, being the one that was running a place called Circle of Hope, which it was the opposite of hope at that place. It's interesting because they talk a bit about the location because we have Allison Householder, Amanda Householder,
Amanda. Yeah. Oh, Amanda?
Amanda, I think. So anyway, she was a daughter there, and she recounted just how horrible it was there and just the conditions. Like it was a house that was like a regular little ranch, and they would have like at times like 30 people in that place and just overcrowding. They had a room that was like the room where they would lock kids in it.
The Get Right room.
The Get Right room was not at the Circle of Hope place.
Oh, that's right. They all had different names. Yeah.
They all had different names. Yeah. Basically, it's a room with nothing in it. You're just in there, and they kept you in there for days. They would let you out
with tapes playing of preaching, playing outside the door, which we've talked about this on the show before. That is a recognized form of torture.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's against the Geneva Conventions.
Yeah. So, but there is also, Amanda talked about, there wasn't just the rooms. They would do things like make them like stand against the wall, but like stand facing it and stand there for hours, just hours and days.
5-year-olds.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever tried to standing staring at a wall doesn't sound super hard, but if you did that for more than 30 minutes, I would be going bananas. I wouldn't be able to handle that. That would just.
Also, we don't ever think about how hard it is to do things that we just kind of do. But like, in boot camp, one of their favorite, like hazing things, not really hazing legally, but whatever, is like they would make you hold your hands out with cotton balls in your hands and hold your hands straight out. And like 10 minutes in, you're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Like 10 minutes in, you're like, I cannot do this for another second. I'm going to die. My arm's going to fall off. So, when you're standing up, obviously it takes longer than 10 minutes to become exhausted, but like your whole weight of your body is on your hips, knees, and feet, and you will get tired, and it is difficult, and it's not good for you.
No. So just one of the myriad of things. Oh, I wanted to ask you a quick question when you're just talking about basic training, because I was watching this video with this guy who I like very much on TikTok. His name is Patrick Lawler, and he does a lot of really. And he talks about when he was in boot camp, they would make them hold things like this, like cups and stuff like that, to walk around like this so that they would keep things tight or not do loosey goosey stuff with things like grenades when they're out in the field. But he said that was the point of it, was to make them be very, very rigid. And I don't know if you had to deal with something like that. I think he was in the Army though. He wasn't in the Marines.
He was in the Army. I think we did that mostly like with drill. Mm-hmm. So like rather than having like a specific exercise, it was just like the way that we marched and did all that, like, because also we're there for 3 months and every time you walk anywhere you're drilling, so they had plenty of opportunity to instill those values in us via different strategies. We'll say. Some of them more pleasant than others.
Yeah, for sure. So all right, so we know that there's some really horrible stuff going on at this ranch. Amanda talks about the thing where she and this one kid, what did the kid was like, I know what this is. And it was something where it was like, this leads to abuse. I was in foster care before, and this happened to me, where basically Amanda's dad was touching her or something like that. And she was just like, I can't be here for this. So Amanda helps her and escapes.
Yeah.
Like they go and escape, and they escaped to New Mexico. Like he went from Arizona to New Mexico somehow. Like, yeah. So yeah, it's and then she has to go back, but
she's turned back over, which again is just like, this stuff is like it, right? But then it's like, oh well, she's home for troubled teens, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's her parents running it, so shouldn't she not have these problems? But then the next time they disown her, which is probably the best thing that could have happened to her, but I'm sure came with a lot of crazy mixed emotions about all those kids that were left behind. I mean, I'm sure she said as much. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk, especially in the last episode or two, where they're talking a lot about the guilt of, if I would have spoken up sooner, this wouldn't happen. Or I got kicked out, I could have stayed there and helped other kids. Like there's just so much guilt that these women carry, and it's not their fault. But it almost reminds me a bit of like survivor guilt. Like if you're in like a car accident and everybody dies except you, and you're like, well, why was I not? Like, that's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the most heartbreaking part of Amanda's story is she says she didn't want her parents to go to jail. She didn't want them to be punished. She kind of had this naive hope that if they didn't have the house anymore, like not the house, the boarding school, that they could like snap back and be her parents again. And it seems like it took her a really long time to like get over the idea that like that they were not, that's who they were. Because she wants a mom and dad, like, and they weren't always like that to her. It was kind of like when they got the power, took advantage of it, which is wild to think about. There's also rampant sexual abuse in that house as well.
Yes. Yep. Because later on we learned that her dad was like charged with like 60 crimes, and they were a lot of them were sodomy and rape and things like that to minors. Just awful, awful shit. And I imagine if that was your dad, you'd be like, how the fuck do you reconcile that your dad's an absolute monster, like just monster? And the mom was just as bad, but she wasn't doing the assaulting, but she knew about it.
She's charged with like over 100 counts of neglect or something like that. So I do have an update on that. I looked it up. At the end of the documentary, it says that their trial was slated for 2023 or 2024. I can't remember. So I looked it up. Her father died before he could go to trial. Mm-hmm. And as a result, they decided to drop all of the charges against her mother. So no justice at all. And she was quoted as being absolutely incensed and furious about the fact that her mother was not being held accountable.
Yeah.
Just like she still committed those crimes just because the guy who did the worst shit is dead. I don't know. It's very like, again, the people in charge of meting out justice in these cases, it's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. And I get that, when they probably had the backing of the IFB for money purposes for lawyers and shit like that, I would imagine. Or they just had money because they were exploiting the shit out of the system. Yeah. But like the idea that they stretched that out for years is pretty wild. Like listen, criminal trials like that, a year, maybe, but that was 4 years, 5 years, 4 years, I think.
And that's almost always on the side of the defendant because the prosecution is obligated to do it as quickly as possible. So yeah, I don't know. It's upsetting to me. It was very upsetting to me. I was hoping for a better outcome.
Mm-hmm. We did get some better outcomes on other ones, but that one was actually, there was one that was a good outcome. And I think the other ones were more than a bit dissatisfying. Yeah.
So there was 3 at the end, right? And I have Paul Fox and I have Aaron Willen, but it was John Jenkins. I didn't write down what happened.
For whom was the last one? Sorry.
Was it John Jenkins was the third? No.
John Jenkins didn't get charged. He avoided
Vincent?
all that.
Was it Victor or Vincent?
Victor. Yeah, Victor got a pretty light.
I forgot to write down what he got.
Because Victor got, I think he got 3 years? It was like very.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Victor, Kathy's brother-in-law, who went on to abuse other young women exactly how Kathy was abused, pled guilty, got 3 years. While Fox pled guilty, got 2 fucking years. 2 fucking years. I was ready. I can't even now. I can't respond to it. I couldn't fucking believe it.
Yeah, even Kathy was like, I would have liked more, but hey, at least he's in prison. And that's a pretty healthy approach to me because I would have been not that calm about that.
This was the thing to me in that situation too, is like, we have this stupid fucking system, which I disagree with almost everything about it. But it's like, we're going to have it, right? Like, can we not actually take justice into account? This guy got to be free and almost certainly abuse more people for fucking decades. Shouldn't that come into how seriously you take sentencing? Yeah, like, yeah, it really, let me tell you. And then, we have fucking Aaron Mullen comes in, he pleads guilty, and the judge says, do you understand that the charges you're facing could result in life in prison? He's like, no, I didn't. And so they have to fucking stop.
Yeah.
And, we're seeing this from 2 points of view because this is during COVID. So Ruthie's at home watching this on
Zoom,
which actually I'm kind of glad for her because she got to get out her like commentary, her like what the fucks, and her like, you don't remember, like all of that without being held in contempt of court, which is good for her. Because I'm like, man, if that had happened in person, I don't know that, like, I don't know that I could have held it in.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm glad for that. But, there's this suspense in waiting to find out, is he going to change his mind? Are we going to have to go to a jury trial? Because at this point in her life, she just wants it to be over. This
Right.
happened when she was a teenager. She's a married woman with children now.
Yeah, she's in her mid 30s, I think.
And a lot of people who've dealt with trauma, or even if someone going through a nasty divorce, it's like, when it's not over yet, it's very, very hard to fully let it go.
Yeah.
And so she just wants it to fucking be over. Luckily he came back and he did not change his mind, and he got
135 months to 40 years.
Yeah, 40 fucking years. Well, good.
I hope he serves them all. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is for those kind of people, when they go into prison, and if you get known to be someone who does things to kids, that doesn't go well for you if you're in general population. So my guess is they probably have him in some sort of protective custody kind of deal, because that guy specifically wouldn't last 5 minutes in general population.
No, and he was such a real punchable face. Really, like, if you didn't know, well, I don't know, we knew the whole time, but he really inspires a certain specific kind of rage.
Yeah. There's certain people that are in a certain part of our public eye who are very smirky when they talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think we know who I'm talking about. There's a couple of them who that makes me just raging angry. Like, you're smirking like you're just some superior smug piece of shit. And he had that kind of face. He wasn't smirky when he was on the show.
No, he was, I will say, certain amount of pleasure seeing him so fucking tail between his legs, so powerless. Because that's what struck me, what I thought was so great, is these guys got to do what they did because they thought they were untouchable, and this guy just had to stare down the barrel of the fact that no, you ain't.
Yeah. I am glad that there wasn't a statute of limitation things for that in Michigan for Ruthie to be able to get that justice. As much as we felt, I think you and I both felt really terrible for the other sentences that were meted out, this one felt a little bit more on point of what it should be.
And we had the woman who was suing was it one of the Goddards? I can't remember now. Or it was John Jenkins?
No, it was there's too many names. There's too many pastors that are in the middle of all that.
She was suing a specific pastor and a specific church community of the IFB, and she did get she was suing because she was excluded by statute of limitations for criminal charges. She didn't feel like she could speak up until that had already passed. And then this is fucking weird, but the case was dismissed because they said she couldn't prove injury, which is wild.
Yeah, how you supposed to prove injury fucking 30 years later?
It's well, I don't know. Look at this chick. She's pretty, she's still suffering. She clearly, to me, she's injured. Yeah. Anyway, so they show her just going to the church after that and saying well, let's have a meeting. And of course they're no, you got to go through our lawyers, blah, blah, blah. And she's well, the case got dismissed. Let's just talk. And they wouldn't, which I'm not surprised, but
yeah, legally they were advised not to do that.
Yeah. But it was really I did like that, she, when she told Ruthie that it made it worth it that Ruthie got justice, and that felt like a victory for everyone who did not get to experience that, who didn't get to have justice in their case. I thought that was nice.
Yeah. And it's interesting that there's someone in my life who had some very serious stuff happen to them at the hands of another person. And that person did get arrested. And the stuff they did to this person, that should have been 10, 20 year sentence at least. And that person got 5 years. So I understand the feeling of just like the inadequacy of a sentence. Uh, so I can see like just the frustration of being like, that's all. Like that person ruined my life, like ruined me to a point that I am still struggling now 25, 30 years later because of what they did to me. It's a life sentence for me and they're getting 2 years. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I could see why just the injustice of it seems so stark, you know?
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. I think like the other thing is you have to imagine that if any of these guys had gotten appropriate sentences, appropriate consequences when they offended the first time, maybe we wouldn't have so many people seeking justice from them or now.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the name of that guy that was who was it wasn't any of the guys we mentioned. He was different. He was like this kind of silver haired dude now, but he was kind of a rising star way back early on. That was the guy that I'm thinking of, and I cannot remember his name, and I didn't put it in the notes, and that's on me for not doing that.
I know. Like, so I was looking and I was like, where did the rest of my notes go?
I've had
Sometimes
that
on these
happen to me a few
brutal
times.
ones, yeah, on these really brutal ones, it's hard for me to take detailed notes because it's just like you got to have like a level of distance. I think it's only happened to me a couple times, like with Jonestown. I had to have a level of distance with Jonestown that I didn't have to have on other ones. And this one's the same.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to narrow this down. It's bothering me. Wasn't Steve Anderson? That wasn't it.
Well, I think there's like a wiki page that goes over the episodes.
There is, but they don't have that. They just have like Jack Schaap, Bruce Goddard, and John Jenkins and Jack Hiles, and it's not any of those dudes.
No.
But that guy is still prominent. I think he's in North Carolina.
Yeah, he's got his own little church office and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Zach.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, 123. That's my password. I could do the Spaceballs thing. Password's 12345. That's a password to my luggage. Sorry. Side note on there. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, but
what I think is great about this documentary, it's not like you said that it's told from the victim's point of view, because I do think that's very important. I'd love to see more of them told this way. The trick there is that they have to drive it, right? The victims have to want to tell their story. I don't like it. Mm-hmm. I know a true crime writer who said one of the reasons that she appears on so many of these little true crime vignette shows is because sometimes if she appears, they'll leave the family alone.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, what I thought was super.
But sorry, go ahead.
I thought it was super tough seeing like these women go to the sites of where their abuse happened.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, like that cannot be an easy thing to deal with. Just going to the scene of the crime literally is just like the one where we were talking about, and it was Kathy talking about how Paul Fox would, and it was interesting. She always called him Paul Fox, full name, every time.
Yeah.
But how he would pull this van off into these little side roads, and then just, take advantage of her, and just the idea of being like, you're in a van with a person that's doing wrong things to you, and you're helpless. And you're young and you're told that your voice doesn't matter and just sit down and shut up. And like, ugh.
Well, no, and that's what I would say. The thing that I liked about this is that it's also a story, not just about what happened to them, but what they're doing about it. Mm-hmm. And how they are not just doing it for themselves, but for other women and girls that are going through the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I assume, I didn't go into great detail looking into the blind eye movement, but I assume that they're also supportive of male victims of this kind of spiritual and sexual abuse. And I just think that's really interesting. A lot of times when we hear these stories, the worse the news story is, the less you hear about the victims.
Mm-hmm.
I was going over some stuff that I had written in the past, and I was looking at an article about the Slenderman stabbings. And I remember that when it came out, there was so little attention paid to the victim that some people didn't know that she lived.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So
Yeah, really amazing story, actually. Like heroism, like holy shit, against all odds. I cannot believe that a 12 or 13-year-old girl could survive that the way that she had to, literally pull herself by her hands through the woods to a road and all this. And that's an amazing story, and in many ways, wouldn't you rather hear that story? Right? So I think this was refreshing in that way, even though the content was really hard to swallow, even though a lot of these documentaries, especially when they're several episodes long, they kind of ease you into the horror because they tell you what this organization is about for a while first. But this one went right into it. But in a way, it was almost like we're going to get right into it because we want to get to what is happening now. What is the important thing? And I wish that we did that a lot more. I wish that we put more focus on, when people who are, their stories are being put out, whether they like it or not, if they take control of that story and they're doing something with it, that is very admirable in my opinion.
yeah, agreed. And yeah, the problem is we have things with the news where the sensationalized part of it is what sells. That's what gets them clicks. That's what gets them views. So talking about someone who's a monster is going to get more views than talking about this inspirational story about a person who survived. Unfortunately, and that's why I'm really grateful for documentaries like this, where they just are like, we're going to focus on the survivors and their journey, and it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster for some of it, and some of it's going to be great, and some of it's going to be terrible, but you're giving those people a voice, and they did not have a voice for most of their lives.
Yeah, and they're standing up for other people who didn't have a voice, and I think that not everybody can do that. And I don't think people should be expected to do that. I don't think anybody's obligated to take their trauma and turn it into something that serves other people. But I think that when people can do that, and when they can find like this group of women who found healing with each other and with this mission they're doing, I think that's worthy of a lot of praise and admiration. I'm actually very impressed by all these women. And you see it, many generations of women, and they're brought together by these horrible circumstances, but they're dedicated to making sure that there's not going to be another set of women of all different generations that have to meet like this in 20 years or 30 years.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is this is generational too. Like, you're starting with the lady before Kathy, who was, lost her lawsuit. She was, I think, one of the earlier ones, and as far as all the victims we saw. And then you have Ruthie, and then there was the other one lady who's younger than her yet. So there was like there was a gap for that victor's abuse between the one lady whose last name was Avila, I think it was Angel Avila, and then the other lady who I cannot remember her name. But there was a gap of like 4 years between those two.
Yeah. And we don't know if there were or weren't other victims in that time. It's, but yeah, it's crazy to me that the IFB is allowed to continue to exist. Because like I say, it seems like all evidence points toward this being the point.
Yeah. So fucking IFB. Sometimes, man, I just wonder how some of these things continue to function. Like, I sent you a photo today of I got out of the gym, and there are these flyers on my car, and I open it up, and it's something from Tony Alamo and his ministry, and I'm like, that's still fucking around? Like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. So
like anyway. Say, you go into any bookstore, but especially like a new age bookstore, and you're gonna find shit with Osho's quotes all over it, books by Osho, like beautiful journals, like leather covers with little quotes, inspirational quotes from Osho. I saw something. I have this little app. I'm not going to name it because I'm about to say something negative about it, but it gives you like little quotes throughout the day. And one came up, and I was like, I recognize that name. And it was a Swami. And I was like, the only Swami names that I recognize are cult leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't expect everybody to know everything about cults, but
maybe research your stuff a little bit before you're putting it out on an app. Maybe be a little bit more, have a little bit more foresight on that.
To be fair, it's meant to help you contemplate life and death. So you contemplate what it might be like to give your life to a cult. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we see enough examples when we're talking about this on the show, like seeing like the life conditions are rarely great. So yeah.
Don't consider it too hard. Yeah. So we got through that one fast.
Yeah.
There's just like hit fast forward.
Yeah, but this is, I think part of it is we kind of wanted to get through it a bit faster because it was a pretty difficult watch. Like from the perspective of seeing the victims and what they were going through, and just like the other thing about what I really like about it is just seeing these women band together and be really super supportive and not backing down, because they back down so many times in their youth because they were told that their words were worthless. You're a kid, like you're not even an adult, and you're a woman or a girl, like you're even your opinion matters even less. So there's that part. So it was good to see them, like Ruthie, just being like, I will go to the ends of the earth on this, and like good on her. Yeah. I did comment to you, I'm always kind of floored that like when people get horrible things done to them in the name of some religion and they still adhere to the religion to some degree.
Yeah.
I would be out so fast.
I mean, and I think there's this thing too,
I'm a stubborn person though too, so there's that.
We have that in common. I think some of it is like people tend to think of different churches as different religions when in reality they're just different sects of Christianity.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm just very cautious. That's what I learned. My experience of spiritual weirdness is just be very cautious.
Yeah, and I mean, there are certainly healthy variants of religions in every religion to some degree.
Yeah.
But there's far too many that are not. And yeah, it's just hard to take on some sort of organized religion and not be very skeptical, just knowing what we know about so many of them, and just not being like casting a very wary eye about what they're doing, what they're saying.
Yeah. I would go further than that and just say what we know happens when people get a lot of power, because it's religion, sure, all the time. But like, the Diddy trial wrapped up today or yesterday, right?
Today.
That wasn't that wasn't religious. He just had the power to, and the stuff that was coming out, I didn't really follow it closely, but you couldn't help but hear some of it. Yeah. And the stuff that people were doing, and the stuff that they felt that they had to do because of who he was. And some of this was like before he was really, you wouldn't think they had that much power in these times. So it's like you give people power and they change. And that is just the truth. And I don't know if it's universally negative, but it's often negative.
Yeah, unfortunately so, because, the whole idea of, what's it like, absolute power corrupts absolutely or something like that. It doesn't even need to be absolute power. You just give people a little bit of power, and then they want more, and they want more, and they want more. And it's the same thing with, money is the same thing. Like if you get some, people just tend to want more and more and more. And I'm not built that way, even though I grew up really poor. So, but yeah, I'm not of that mindset, but yeah. No one should have, very much so. You're 100% right there. So Yeah, I don't know. Do we have any more to talk about this? I mean, we could probably talk a lot more about it, but is there
We
more
probably
to say?
could, yeah. So I don't know. I don't want to hammer it too much because I think we hit the high points, and I think if people are interested to go further with this and they feel like they're up to it, it is a good watch. It's difficult, and you need to go into it clear-headed and ready for that. But
Yeah.
these women are pretty fucking amazing women, and so I would recommend it on the basis of that if you feel like it's something you can handle. And if you get into it and you realize I was wrong, you can always turn it off.
Yeah. That's the great thing. You just turn it right off. You don't have to watch it anymore. So yeah, I agree. I think there's, as horrible as it was for these women, the way they did this documentary to me seemed like it was pretty empowering for them to show them how they banded together and were able to come together and try to help each other and be there for each other and support each other. And all of them came from such really terrible upbringings and from an abuse perspective. So, and it's great to see them, gain power from each other.
Yeah. I mean, healing happens when secrets are told, right? That's
a great line.
I didn't make it up. I can't remember where I heard it though. I was going to say it. I forgot. Anyway, I do have something I'd like to share if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's hear it.
Some of you knew me when, but many of you didn't. Dirge Magazine is coming back in 10 short days, July 12th. Our what we decided to rescue from the archives will be live July 12th, and we will be publishing new content after that, and it's gonna be very exciting, and I hope you join me. And now all of our stuff is like acid pink and super fun looking.
Nice. For those that don't know what Dirge is, can you explain what Dirge Magazine is? What kind of content do you guys put out?
The first time around we were a dark culture magazine, which a lot of people thought meant goth, but it didn't. This time around, there's going to be some of that. We are definitely going to do that, but we are also going way more weird because it is our core editorial team back again, and we all got weirder over the last several years. So the magazine is going to be all of the things that previous readers loved, like my true crime essays were, I wasn't covering it like this is what happened. I was covering it more from the lens of like, what does it say about us? I wrote a lot about hybristophiliacs. I was just editing an old archive piece on that. Those are women who are sexually attracted to serial killers. There's gonna be stuff like that. There's gonna be stuff like about horror movies and horror novels. Hopefully there's gonna be stuff like really weird fiction. We covered a lot of Jeff Vandermeer that first time around. All that's gonna be coming back. And then there's going to be other shit like I want to write about, I found out that there's ghost wives, people who think they're married to ghosts.
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah. And, we have some great writers that are going to do amazing things. And our goal right now is to only do things that make us happy. And we're excited to write. And hopefully all the weirdos will find us and we'll get to be weird together. No shrimping, but I do want to write about the Viagra Boys, and they have like a whole lot of weird mythology about shrimp. So there will be shrimp, but not shrimping.
I've never heard of the Viagra Boys.
Actually, because we have always and will always cover weird sex stuff. So
I've never heard of the Viagra Boys, so I'm not. Do I want to know anything about them, or am I better served not know?
They're like they're currently my favorite band. We're gonna have to solve.
Oh, they're a band. I thought this was like some weird sex cult thing.
No, I would have told you about it. You would have heard about it first, Doug.
That's true. I would hope so.
Band from Sweden.
From Sweden, okay.
Oh God. It's nice to do it live again so that we can have Zach's comic relief.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenny, for the comment there. That was great. So I don't know. Like I said, we covered all the bases. This is one of those documentaries where I think if you can handle hearing some of the hard stuff, it's a very worthwhile documentary. I think just because you get to see women come into their power despite really horrible experiences. So
yeah.
So, all right, let's talk a bit about, since we've been doing some pretty heavy stuff. Next month, we're going to be changing it up a little bit. We're going to be talking about Brandy Hellville and the cult of fast fashion. I have never heard Brandy Hellville's name in my life.
Me either.
Fast fashion is a weird thing in so many different facets. I always think of fast fashion in the sense of like sweatshops in the Far East, and that's where fast fashion comes from. And I'm sure that will be part, but I'll be interested to see what this is, because this is completely new to me. So.
Yeah, I want to be like, oh, this is like if we did some serious pictures and we are like, let's do a silly one. But the reality is, this is probably going to be a huge bummer too.
Probably, but it's not so much in the idea of like this one was so heavy into like child abuse and child sex abuse, and I was like, I don't want to do another one of those right away. Let's change it up. It's not like what was the space cult we covered?
Unarius.
It's not going to be that fun. So I don't think, but yeah.
It's really hard because most cults are bad, like through and through, start to finish. Very few of them are like, what if Star Trek was real? And so was Star Wars. And so was a dream I had last night.
That's the fun kind of cult. So like you said, those are few and far between. So, and I have a feeling this won't be that, but yeah. Anyway, Renee, anything else before we call it an evening?
I don't think so.
No. Good luck with Dirge. I'll look forward to seeing that all come live. When is that coming live again? 12th? Did I hear that right?
The July 12th. Our archives will be back up. Not the entire archive. We trimmed the fat. And then you'll see new content following shortly thereafter.
Sweet. All right. Well, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much. Cheers.